On today's edition of the Shrilma Show, we are honored to be in the presence of Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. Dr. Nick Ngwanyam is the CEO of St. Louis Higher Institute of Medical Studies. Welcome to the Shrilma Show, Doc.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, and thanks for the great job you're doing.
We're so glad you're here. So please, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, again, as I said, I'm Dr. Nick Ngwanyam from Kambe, and I'm 64 years old. I studied medicine in Cameroon, Nairobi, and the UK. Worked with the government for some time, and in 1994-95, I opened my own clinic in Bamenda, which eventually became an institution for training health personnel. And with the war that started in Bamenda, that is in 2017, we got an authorization to extend our services to Douala. And the interesting thing about the authorization is that we now train in the health services, we train and we have authorizations to do engineering and technology. And for now, we've just started with agriculture, ICT, and I think electricity.
So how does your background in medicine helps you in starting in kind of like in facilitating technology and engineering?
No, what I do, very few medical doctors would do what I do. Okay. Is what I'm doing currently has nothing to do with my medical studies. It has absolutely nothing, except of course that I use the technique of diagnosis for medicine, the way you solve problems for medicine, and I apply them in what I am doing. But the entrepreneurial skills come from something else. Okay. It comes from my upbringing, and it comes from, I think it's just one of those things that I learned on the way. And I would tell you that when I was a kid, my wife never likes me saying this, but I went to primary school without shoes. Oh. So I just want to say this so that everyone else that can understand that I know what poverty is, I can spell it. Yeah. And the idea was, how do I get out of this poverty formula? Okay. And what I know was that when I was still very young, I lived alone in class 7, and I would come back from school and put down my bags. Instead of playing like other kids, I would be in my father's coffee farm harvesting the coffee because I knew the coffee was money. Wow. So for a very long time, I knew that I had an idea about assets. What is it that is important in life? Do you spend your time playing, or you spend your time doing something useful? And I became a medical doctor because my grandfather was very sick. And he made a wish on me that he said, I wish you could become a doctor, operate people and they live. So I put that in my spirit, and I started to work towards that. And when I went to secondary school, I started in JMB Sindhu before going to CPC Bali. I must tell you, we had this agricultural club called the 5C Club, and it was for agriculture, and I had the best bed. You know, I used to grow the best lettuce and the best tomatoes and sell them to the whites who were there at the time. So I knew we could get money from agriculture. And, while in secondary school, I was a photographer. Yes. I used to take pictures, and in Form 3, I learned how to print black and white pictures. I would do that in the dormitory, develop them, and I would sell to other schoolmates and make money. And I knew it was great, and I was taking those pictures even when I was in medical school, up to 6th year medical school in Yaoundé, and I would take my camera and go out there. The young students, be they in first year in the faculties, I had no business with them. I do my job, you pay me. So that was the idea. And so entrepreneur is something that I picked up from very early, and that's what is making me who I am today. And I've come to understand a lot about it because I have studied, and I see just how the technique can be used to help a lot of youths.
Wow, thank you for that. I've seen a lot of startups of recent coming up in Cameroon. Yeah. But now I also find it's kind of like challenging also to find maybe 2 people coming together to start a single business. Yeah. Do you think that this idea of wanting to study to become a civil servant somehow makes us to be individualistic in our ways of reasoning?
So you see, when I was describing, you must know problems, you must understand problems. You must know how to solve problems, because it's actually in the course of solving problems that you generate money, that you get wealth. If you don't solve no problem, you can't get paid. And who pays you is nature. It's not the government. Just say nature. Whoever. It's nature. Solve the problem and nature pays you. And underlying all of that, therefore, the foundation is the sound education. And even before we get lost, the best education in the world that we ought to copy is not from France, it's not from England. So even this our thing in Cameroon, we say Francophone education, English education is all bullshit. The right education that you want for any kid in Africa or any developing country is copy from South Korea, copy from Malaysia, copy from Singapore, copy from Finland.
So what exactly should they be copying?
Now, how is their education structured? Their education is in such a way that if you go there, you will not find grammar schools down here and technical schools over there. It's just a beautiful school system in which you throw the kids. And you have everything in the school. And the school system allows the child to grow with their talents. Okay? And when they're in school, especially in Finland, the idea is not to fail kids. The idea is to help children grow their inner talents and discover who they are. So the education is pupil or student centered. But over here, we just have a set of things that we push down the throats of children. And we fail to understand something. You know, what we call intelligence, there are 8 kinds of intelligences. All right? There are 8 kinds of intelligences. But our school system, as we have them now, in Africa, America, and everywhere, was developed on what we call the logical mathematical intelligence. The school system now, which is not taking into cognizance 7 other intelligences. So children who are born with the other intelligences, they feel left out. And therefore, when they don't cope, we treat them as what? As failures, which is not true. And even what we give people as in the logical mathematical intelligence thing is not really what develops the wealth. So when you have that or whatever, you have to pool a lot of skills and resources together and develop that creative mind. It is from that creative mind that everything comes. So if you're going to teach children, it doesn't matter what, and they don't have creativity, they will not get very far. Like you, for instance, I mean, I'm so excited to know that you are an auditor, an accountant, and you're into journalism, doing this kind of thing and so on. That's the creative part of you that's coming out. But in most people, it will be suppressed. All right? So we need to create a system and a school system that allows children to be creative and come out of their cocoons, and things will change. And by the way, the training that we give our children must have a lot of technology. In Cameroon now and most African countries, there's no technology in what we do.
We're going to take another break this time around, and please don't go away. If you're just joining us today on the Shrilma Show, we are here with Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. So Dr. Nick, before the break, we're looking at the issue, the problem that we have in our society, the African context, right? Yes. So now let's look at some of the challenges that we have in our hospitals today. Yes. So for instance, let me take a personal experience that I had. So I had an accident once, yes. Went to the hospital, yes. And they won't start treating me until I bring money. Yes. I bring a deposit, I place a deposit. Yes. So now, what is the right thing to do? Should they start the treatment and risk losing their money or risk a patient dying?
It's a very tricky question, and then it depends on which hospital you go to. But normally, from our training, you're supposed to attend to the patient whether they have money or not.
But when you start up a hospital practice, you have so much resources, and you have to pay staff, you have to pay. Take for instance a case like Douala. Yeah. You've got to pay the rent, you've got to pay for the water, electricity, whatever. So somehow you must earn the money that you need to be able to run the services. But the thing is, you must have something laid aside, some margin that you will use, to help people who cannot pay. And then you use your discretion to tap down the cost. Let's say the bills for people who cannot afford. You probably want to cancel bed fee or something like that to get them. But the bottom line is, as you see a patient, even when you're seeing it for free, it costs money. That's the bottom. We should keep that in mind. Yeah. It costs money. It costs resources, and therefore, so that persons should not die, I would say that every hospital setting should have some kind of a margin, set aside for people like that.
Okay.
When the margin is completely absent, it's very dangerous. Have something that you can use to look after patients who are in difficulties, a buffer system, so to speak.
Okay.
And then if they can pay you later on, fine. If they can pay part of the bill, fine. But if they don't pay anything at all, we ought to realize that, being a doctor or even being who you are is a grace from God, and you should be able to give something back to God.
So now, tell me about the cell phone issue. It's kind of like at times you go to the hospital, a patient is in front of maybe a nurse, and the nurse is maybe answering a call.
It's just part of our bad training, poor training. It's people, we are not duty conscious. Many people are not duty conscious and don't know what comes first. You should be able to know that your job as a nurse or a doctor comes first before other distractions. But of course, you could be a medical doctor and you're seeing a patient and an important call comes in.
Okay.
That's one thing.
Okay.
But to be playing around with your phone, watching people dancing on your phone, or doing WhatsApps or something stupid like that when a patient is in difficulty, is a shame.
So what is St. Louis doing differently to ensure that the graduates provide better services to the public?
Actually, that is the spirit of St. Louis, in the sense that, I didn't just start St. Louis just for the sake of it.
Okay.
I trained, like I said, I became a medical doctor. You become a medical doctor in your mind,
Okay.
before it manifests itself.
I kind of look at medicine to be like a call or something.
Yes, you're right. You have to have it in your spirit and say, I want to be this for this reason. The question is, why do you want to be a medical doctor? Why do you want to be a nurse or whatever, a pharmacist or whatever? You must have a good reason why you want to be one. If you want to be just for the sake of money, then you are lost. It will never work. But you should be there because you think that and you believe that you'll be able to make life better and easier for people suffering.
Okay.
You'll be able to take care of physical disease, emotional disease, or whatever, and you'll be there for people who are in pain.
Okay.
Once you get that right, then everything will fall in place. And therefore, in the training of medical doctors and nurses or whatever, the most important thing is not just for people to be able to pass their examinations and be smart, but 75% of our success, this goes even for all trades.
Yeah.
75% of our success in life is attitude. It depends on attitude. And that's where most of us are messing up. When you have, governments and countries and civil service struggling, is because in the training of our youth, it doesn't matter in which field, we didn't pay attention to their character and their attitude, so they get it all wrong. They think it's all about themselves, and then they're pushing people and kicking people around. They get their some people get pleasure just by showing how tough they are, kicking people around, which is all wrong because they were badly brought up. So technically, you have Shirley, you want to succeed in life, you have masters in this, 20 masters, 20 PhDs, all of that accounts only to 25% of your success. The rest of the 75% of your success is character, your attitude, emotional intelligence, how you interact with yourself and with people. If you fail on that, you are lost. It doesn't matter who you are.
So have you ever looked at a student and just go, oh my, just leave this profession?
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. St. Louis is one of those institutions where we dismiss students.
Oh.
In Bamenda, we used to have about 500 students in the class before the war. At the end of the year, we'll dismiss about 35. For one reason or the other, because it's not a place where you come to joke. Because technically, when you train people in the medical field, you are giving them a license to give life or to kill. And therefore, we must get it right. Either you are in for it or out. Yeah, no two ways. Yeah.
So now, how do you pass this on? Because most of the times, right, you have many proprietors who are this passionate about the business. They have this well laid out rules and guidelines that they follow to ensure that everything in the business runs well when they are alive. But most of the times when they are gone, these businesses disappear because maybe this approach, this attitude, this culture was not passed on. So what do you think should be done better?
That's right. Like you were saying, you have a great idea, you're running a business. any business for that matter, or any enterprise for that matter, you've got to train people. Your workers should be, the people who work for you in the organization, don't treat them like workers, treat them like family.
Wow.
Okay? And your own kids and your own relatives should be part of your vision. If you know what you are doing and you don't train your children to be part of your vision, of course when you die we'll all be gone.
Mm-hmm.
So there must be a succession plan, and you don't start putting in a succession plan when you are dying. You know, the child has to grow in it, and it becomes part of the child's DNA, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the child begins to breathe the thing, but not that you should force what you are doing on the kids. Let the kids also discover who they are, and then tap on what you are doing, and probably they can take the two visions together and run with them. But never kill a child's vision for your own.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah, but if they can buy your vision and do what they love to do and still pull along what you are also doing, you have 3, 4, or 5 kids working together as a team, they will make it pull through. But if you have a big business, of course, you would want to go from a sole proprietorship and create a company.
Sure.
At the right moment, because you create a company too early, you kill it.
Oh.
If you create it too late, of course, then you get lost. But if your children are good enough, they can create the company even after you. But you can only open to the general public, you know, at a point in time. But you will realize that general public is probably not interested in your core values. They're interested in the dividends or the money. And therefore, when you're selecting people who must have a share in your business, make sure that they buy into your core values. If they're only looking for money, then take the money from them and invest it, and then work on the principle of debentures.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks.
We're going to take another break this time around, and please don't go away, because Dr. Nick Ngwanyam is still here with us. Thank you. Here with Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. I'm just a student today on the Shrilma Show. So what has been one of the most crucial decisions that you had to make during this period?
1 or 2 or 3, I don't know.
Okay.
But the first thing is that up at the station in Bamenda, we had about 5 hectares of land where we wanted to extend our activities. But for some odd reason, some bad people came up with some ideas of their own to grab the land. They eventually grabbed the land, and you know, they even caused a lot of violence on the land. So I was like, oh, keep your land, you know. I had to let it. I mean, learning to let go is very, very important. Then, if you know my house where I stay in Bamenda, it's a big house, nice house that I built for myself. Of course, we have some other people living with us. Then you leave a house like that, you leave your comfort zone, you leave what you are doing. You know, I just abandoned the school and the hospital there and came down here to Douala, got a little place where I was patching. It was like, to hell, you forget it and you move ahead. But the beautiful thing about it is that when you are an entrepreneur and when you are creative, it is not what you have created that is important. It is what is in you. You know, the thing, you carry it in you, and you can recreate anytime, anywhere. What you really lose, which will be much, is if you lose your mind, or you I don't know how best to put it. If you lose your mind, that's it. But if you have it in you, whatever you've created before, you recreate. And the beautiful thing is, you know, even in the process of creating, you might take 5 years to create something, but when you want to recreate, it takes just 1 year. Because you know where the loopholes are, and you just go and you just reproduce it. It's very easy. So, you know, turning my back on things and moving on is not one of the most difficult things. I was just afraid for my life.
Oh, learning to let go.
Yeah,
I just love that lesson, right?
There are a lot of people who make a mistake, you know, thinking what an entrepreneur should be, and I think I'll define it here so that many of the people listening to us can actually get to know.
Okay.
If you take like the business community in Cameroon, you know, if you look at the Bamileke community, for instance, you would think that they are great entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
But in fact, I will shock you, or you look at something like GCAM. You know GCAM?
I know GCAM.
Yeah, you think GCAM is great. There is something that we are doing in Cameroon that is not right.
Okay. What's that?
You get to know.
Thank you.
So if you just look at, you know, the way people make money Or let's look at some of the Nigerian films, for instance. They will be saying, oh, this businessman, he went to China and he's shipping 8 containers every week and so on, and he has a lot of money, and you think that is being an entrepreneur. No, that's not entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? Well, entrepreneurship is not having a lot of money for whatever you do. If you go and steal and you have a lot of money, you're not an entrepreneur. If you buy from over here and sell over here, like we are doing some stupid things, we bring shiploads of rice and then sell to Cameroonians for the last 30 years, shiploads of fish and sell to Cameroonians. That's not entrepreneurship. No. What is entrepreneurship? An entrepreneur is someone who develops a mindset that solves problems. Yeah. You must have a mindset that solves problems. So, an entrepreneur, if you put in mind the wheel of a bicycle, you know where you have the sprocket at the center of the bicycle, that's where the entrepreneur is sitting. And then along the rims of the wheel, on the outside edge, those are resources sitting out there. The entrepreneur identifies a problem in the community. Then he doesn't necessarily have to have the resources other than his brain and the will to do it. Then he says, I have seen this problem. Cameroonians don't have rice to eat. There's a problem of hunger. Then he's looking at it and says, I have to solve this problem. You know, a quick businessman who wants just the bulk will say, okay, I saw some rice in China, it's cheap, I'll go buy it and bring it, sell it to these poor people, they eat. And he thinks he gets money, but that's not entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur looks at it differently. What am I going to do to feed the people? So he knows that he has to generate the rice or whatever to feed the people. But to go buy the rice and come and sell is not his approach. It's not his strategy. He could do that in the first year while putting in place the mechanism to generate the rice himself.
I get that.
Are you getting what I'm saying?
I get that.
That is the entrepreneur. But to do, the entrepreneur adds value to systems. If you are going to do anything without adding value, that is not entrepreneurship. It's not. So he says, okay, he looks and says, okay, I know Shelly over here, she's a good accountant, a good marketer, and so on. I would get her to go to put together a team and go over here, talk to some people and put some money together so that we can buy some land over here and buy some tractors over here, buy some seed over there, get some Indians to come and help us and so on. And before you know it, they have crafted the mechanism for making rice, for producing rice. Are you getting me?
Yeah.
Then they start small and grow and then take over the market with local rice.
Wow.
So now that helps the nation in the sense that we don't have to take all our foreign currency and be throwing to the Chinese. And then in so doing, you cause development, you cause employment, you know, like in Cameroon, we spend 300 billion every year buying rice and fish. That way, by doing that, you retain the 300 billion,
exactly.
You employ all these youths, they have all that money.
Yeah.
That's how an entrepreneur works. Yeah. And then the entrepreneur still gets the money.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, but you did it differently. All right, okay. And to understand again the entrepreneur, if you read Think and Grow Rich, not Think and Grow Rich, Why A Students Work for C Students, or Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, you have how to create wealth. You have those 4 quadrants. I don't know if you've seen the 4 quadrants. Yeah. How do you create wealth? How do you make money? You can make money in one of 4 ways. The 5th way of making money is to steal it. But to make money genuinely, you have only 4 ways. Yeah. Then if you want to, if you are a civil servant and you are rich, then you made it the 5th way, you stole it. Now, so you make it, number 1, by being an employee. Somebody employs you and pays you. Okay, that's not a very smart way of making money. People who are employed and are paid, it doesn't matter what they do, can never be rich. You're just one check away from poverty. Okay, and when hardship comes, you cannot really navigate, and you have to. You know, you depend on a lot. You know, you depend on someone else, and you must. Sometimes you are there for too long. Your creative spirit doesn't work hard. So being an employee is great to a certain extent, but it's not the greatest. Then the other one is creating your self-employed, you know, like when you asked me about the clinic in Bamenda, I created the clinic and I was self-employed, and for the clinic to work, I had to be there as the doctor offering the services, and the people would pay me 500 francs for consultation, or that kind of thing, and I'll be gathering the little pieces, you know, together, which means that when you are self-employed, as long as you are putting in your or take for instance a lawyer, or even an accountant. You have an accounting firm and you are the accountant. If you're not there, the money doesn't come in.
That's right.
So you have to sit there and do the work, and the money comes in. Are you getting what I'm saying?
I'm getting
now,
that.
you might employ a couple of other people to work with you, but it still falls under that category. Then, once you develop the business to the extent that you can step back, you must not be there physically. Then that's now a business. You probably have about 50 or 100 people or more working for you, and then making that thing turn in your absence. That's a business, okay?
That's right.
And then the real guy who is very rich and is making things happen is the investor. All right. Take people like Dangote. Take people like Baba. Polo, and many others like those are real investors. Okay, you put in mechanic, he puts it a tea factory that is working. You know, Dangote puts in the cement thing that is working, and so on. Or you put in an airlines or something that is working. That's it. Or you build estates and so on. That's the best way of making money, because you put in these mega things, and then as the mega thing is turning, it makes mega money for you. But we must not all be investors. But I was kind of like describing so we see the growth path and how it can be. Even if you're a businessman, don't be doing buy and sell them. Okay, you can do buy and sell them, you know, okay, it gives you some money, but try to create something and sell. All right, try to add value. Don't, if you go to China and you're buying so much of these Chinese goods and bringing them over, it's no use. Look at those. And this is the beautiful thing, because I've been to China, America, Dubai, looking for, you know, trying to understand how people make money. And when I went to China in 2008 at the Canton Fair, which is something I would recommend for everybody, I saw that they had these industries, because, you know, when we went to America in 2006, 2008, with the U.S. Embassy, you know, that took us there to see where we could do business with American business people. I noticed that Cameroonians have difficulties doing business with American people because our thought processes are very small, and Americans have already evolved so high, and their things come in mega sizes. So it's like me giving you a huge bone with meat on it and you cannot bite. So while the American is willing to give you something, but you have no capacity to take it. So we need to develop our capacities to take, to receive, all right? And that's what is lacking. There's so much opportunity out there, but we have not developed our capacities. It's very, very important for us. And it is that school system that is messing us up. But again, the beautiful thing about China is that they have 10 key solutions, 10 key small factories that you could learn something, go buy the small factory, put it here, and produce what you need here. You must not be buying finished goods and bringing them here. And we need to train our children to do that. That's the only way we are going to break this cycle of poverty, create opportunities and so on. And I think in the days ahead, St. Louis is going to create the technology village where we'll just go buy a 10-key table for making chairs and so on, put it over there, buy a 10-key factory for doing this and put it over there, so that children can actually see the process of making things happen and how money is earned. Before I go, probably I would like to recommend 4 books for all our youths and parents and governors and ministers and everybody to read. Book number 1, Why A Students? A students are those students who are very sharp in school. They're scoring 25 points at the GCE, whatever. But there's something about these kids in the sense that they are too focused in one thing. But to grow in the world, if you have that focused mind, you will not succeed. Actually, I'm an A student, but I picked up C skills. Now, an A student is the one who ends up a professor or something, but he has tunnel vision. Are you getting what I'm saying? And you don't succeed a lot in the world when you have tunnel vision. And those people are bound to work for C students, because it's the C students who are creative. The C students, by definition, from the logical mathematical intelligence school system, are those students who are not doing very well in school, who on the GCE might be having, let's say 6 or 7 O levels, that kind of thing, 3 papers at the A level, 7 points, that kind of thing. But these are people who also have been used to failing. They fail, they get up. They fail, they get up. And to be a successful entrepreneur or a business person, you must have the spirit of failing and getting up. But when A students are so used to passing that they have never failed in life, if they go into business and fail once, it's done. Okay, but you must, when you have developed that resilience, then you can make it in business or entrepreneurship. So And B students are just very cautious people. They go into government and sit there in the office and work till they die. They don't want to go anywhere. Now, that's the book that you have to read by Robert Kiyosaki. The second book that you want to read is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. We are poor because of our mindsets. Okay, it's a mindset that makes you poor. So you must read. When you read, it opens up your mind. Think and grow rich. Grow rich in many dimensions, and you can also grow rich by making money, whatever. But if you don't read that book and think differently out of the box, the second book that you want to read is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and he tells you the principles of doing things, and it's a mindset, the way you do things. For instance, he teaches you how to think out of the box. So many things that you have to change the paradigm. It's very, very important. He teaches you time use and many other things. And then the last book, there are many other books, but the last book I want you to read is There Is No Excuse by Brian Tracy. And there are 1,001 reasons why we give as alibis to fail. But in that book, Brian Tracy shows you that 1,000 of those excuses we give don't add up. They are not important. They are just excuses to run away from responsibility. And therefore, the one reason that we fail to make it in life is because we lack self-discipline. You must discipline yourself. If you don't discipline yourself, you will not get it. And to end, I would say that the African suffers from 2 diseases. The first disease is ignorance, and you must cure yourself of ignorance by reading, by going beyond, and getting to know. The second disease is irresponsibility. Thank you.
So, Dr. Nick, we have some random questions.
Oh, really?
We want you to relax with them.
Oh,
okay.
I hope they're not embarrassing questions.
Let's see. Let's see. Okay.
All right. Let me pick this one.
Okay.
Do you want to read for me or I read it myself?
You can read it for yourself.
Question. If you could have dinner with anyone from history, whom would that be? Wow. If I had to have dinner with someone from history, I will have it with Robert Kiyosaki.
Wow, okay. Okay. Next, we'll have 3.
Oh, really?
Yes, please.
Okay. Question. If you were the only human left on earth, what will you do? This is very exciting. If I'm the only human and I'm tied to my God, it looks like we're 2 of us.
Wow. Okay.
And besides, anyway, if the world is ruled by 2 spirits, the spirit of the devil and the spirit of God, and to succeed in entrepreneurship, you must choose. That creative energy comes from the spirit of God. And people who don't believe in God, that's your problem. But without my God, I'll be nothing.
Wow. Thank you. And the last?
This one, maybe.
Okay.
If a genius granted you 3 wishes right now, what would you wish for? First, I would wish that when I die, I go to heaven.
Okay.
That's the first thing. And the next would be, I would wish that I should change the education in Africa and get everybody out of poverty.
Wow, that's
and
beautiful.
The third wish would be to help everyone know God.
Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you.
We're honored with the presence of Dr. Nick Ngwanyam on today's edition of the Shrilma Show. For those who don't know Dr. Nick, he's an entrepreneur, he's a medical doctor by profession, and he's also a politician. Thank you so much for being on the Shrilma Show.
It's a pleasure.
Doc, how can people get to you?
Oh yeah, we are on our website is www.stlouis-group.org. I'm giving you this because if you open there, of course, you'll get everything.
Okay.
So if you can just remember www.stlouis-group.org, and there is the Saint is written ST.
Okay.
Thank you.
A million thanks for watching this episode of the Shrilma Show. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Thank you.